The champagne flute slipped from my fingers, shattering against the marble floor like the last of my hopes. Tiny crystal fragments scattered across the restaurant's dimly lit private dining room, each shard reflecting the golden chandelier light. In the sudden silence that followed, I could hear my own heartbeat hammering against my ribs. "I'm so sorry," I whispered, dropping to my knees instinctively, fingers trembling as I reached for the broken pieces. The scent of expensive champagne mixed with the earthy aroma of truffles from the untouched plates on the table. My waitress uniform, a crisp white shirt and black pencil skirt, suddenly felt too tight, too restrictive, as if the air had been sucked from the room. That's when I felt it. The shift in atmosphere. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees, and the hairs on my nape stood on end. I didn't need to look up to know he had noticed. Through the curtain of my dark hair, I glimpsed polished Italian leather shoes approaching, unhurried yet purposeful. They stopped inches from my trembling hands. A collective breath was held by every server in the vicinity. "Leave it." His voice was soft, barely above a whisper, yet it carried the weight of an avalanche. Low, controlled, melodic even, with an accent I couldn't quite place. Eastern European, perhaps, but it was the quiet authority that made my spine stiffen. "Sir, I can clean this up quickly. The words died in my throat as I finally looked up. Dark eyes caught mine, holding me in place more effectively than any physical restraint. He couldn't have been older than 35, with features that belonged on a Renaissance painting, rather than in this overpriced Manhattan restaurant. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw shadowed with perfectly maintained stubble, and lips curved into what might have been amusement, or contempt. I couldn't tell which was worse. "What's your name?" he asked, his gaze never wavering. I swallowed hard. "Eliza. Eliza Mitchell." A subtle nod to someone behind me, and suddenly a large man in a dark suit was helping me to my feet with surprising gentleness, while another began cleaning the mess. "Miss Mitchell will take her break now," the man, clearly someone important, said to my manager, who had appeared with an expression of pure terror. It wasn't a request. "Of course, Mr. Sokolov, absolutely." My manager's voice had taken on a strange, high-pitched quality I'd never heard before. He shot me a warning look that said more than words ever could. Sokolov. The name registered like a cold stone dropping into the pit of my stomach. Even I, perpetually exhausted single mother working double shifts, knew that name. Alexander Sokolov owned half the real estate in the city, at least. That was what appeared on paper. What wasn't on paper were the whispers about what happened to people who crossed him, the businesses that mysteriously changed ownership overnight, and the police investigations that disappeared like morning mist. And now he knew my name. "Follow me, Miss Mitchell." Again, not a request. My legs moved of their own accord, following him through the restaurant toward the private exit, past tables of diners who quickly averted their eyes. His bodyguards flanked us, one ahead, one behind, moving with practiced coordination. Outside, the September air hit my flushed skin, carrying the perpetual symphony of Manhattan. Car horns, distant sirens, the hum of 8 million lives stacked on top of each other. A sleek black Bentley idled at the curb, its windows tinted to impenetrable darkness. The bodyguard opened the rear door, and Mr. Sokolov gestured for me to enter. "I have to get back to work," I said, finding my voice at last. "My shift isn't over for another 3 hours, and I can't afford to lose this job. I can't afford to lose anything else," I thought. Images of my 4-year-old daughter Lily flashing through my mind, waiting at my neighbor's apartment for me to pick her up after my shift. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps, that I hadn't immediately complied. "You'll be compensated for your time, Miss Mitchell. I merely wish to discuss something with you." "Discuss what?" The question escaped before I could stop myself. The corner of his mouth twitched. A proposition. Every warning bell in my body clanged at once. Men like Alexander Sokolov didn't make propositions to women like me without dangerous strings attached. I'd learned that lesson the hard way with Lily's father. "I need to get back inside," I insisted, taking a step backward. His expression didn't change, but something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "I admire your dedication to your employment, Miss Mitchell, but I'm afraid I must insist. It concerns something I believe you overheard earlier this evening while serving in the private dining room." My blood turned to ice. The private dining room. The conversation between the two men I'd served before Mr. Sokolov arrived with his entourage. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but their voices had carried as I'd poured their wine. "It's a trap," one had whispered urgently. "Sokolov's own cousin is working with the feds. They're moving on the shipment tonight." The other had replied something about evidence that would destroy him, and everyone goes down. I'd pretended not to hear, keeping my eyes down, my face carefully blank. A skill perfected from years of dealing with handsy customers and entitled businessmen. I thought I'd been convincing. Clearly, I'd been wrong. "I don't know what you're talking about," I lied, my heart threatening to break through my chest. Alexander Sokolov's smile was terrifying in its gentleness. "I think you do, Miss Mitchell, and I think you're smart enough to understand your situation." His eyes flicked briefly to my left hand, devoid of any ring. "You work double shifts at an expensive restaurant. You mentioned not being able to afford losing this job. That suggests responsibilities." "Family, perhaps?" The blood drained from my face. He couldn't possibly know about Lily. Could he? "Get in the car, Miss Mitchell," he said softly. "I promise you'll be home before midnight." It wasn't a promise. It was a threat, wrapped in silk. I got in the car. The leather seat was butter-soft against my legs, the interior smelling of expensive cologne and something indefinably masculine. Alexander slid in beside me, leaving a careful distance between us that somehow felt more intimidating than if he'd crowded me. The door closed with a soft thud that sounded like finality. "Riverside Drive," he instructed the driver, before pressing a button that raised a privacy screen between us and the front seat. "I don't live on Riverside Drive," I said, clutching my small purse like a shield. "We're not going to your home yet." His emphasis on "your" sent another chill through me. "We're going to mine, for privacy." The Bentley pulled away from the curb, gliding into Manhattan traffic with surprising ease, as if other vehicles sensed it was wiser to move out of its way. Through the window, I watched my workplace, and any hope of normalcy, recede into the distance. "Mr. Sokolov," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "I really don't know anything. I was just doing my job, serving drinks, clearing plates. That's it." He studied me with unnerving intensity, his head tilted slightly. "You have remarkable composure, Miss Mitchell. Most people in your position would be in tears by now." "I'm a single mother working in customer service in New York City," I replied flatly. "It takes more than a scary car ride to make me cry." To my surprise, he laughed, a genuine warm sound that momentarily transformed his face into something almost approachable, almost human. "Noted," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Though I'm not trying to scare you." Could have fooled me. He unbuttoned his suit jacket, charcoal gray, and undoubtedly costing more than 6 months of my rent, and leaned back against the seat. The movement revealed a glimpse of a shoulder holster and the gun it carried. Not trying to scare me? Right. "I apologize for the theatrics," he said, sounding almost sincere, "but the matter is time-sensitive and requires discretion." "What matter? I told you I don't know anything." Your eyes dilated when I mentioned the private dining room conversation. "Your pulse." He nodded toward my neck where my carotid artery betrayed me. "Accelerated. And you've been clutching your purse exactly where your phone would be, presumably contemplating if you could call for help without my noticing." I swallowed hard, abandoning my grip on the purse. "I need to know exactly what you heard," he continued, "and who else you might have told." "I haven't told anyone anything," I said truthfully. "And even if I had overheard something, which I'm not saying I did, why would I tell anyone? I'm trying to keep my head down and make rent, not get involved in whatever this is." His dark eyes seemed to see right through me, dissecting every micro-expression, every slight shift in my posture. It made me feel naked, exposed. "Admirable self-preservation instinct," he murmured, "but insufficient." The car slowed, turning into an underground garage beneath what appeared to be a sleek, modern high-rise. The Bentley purred to a stop in a reserved space near a private elevator. Before I could reach for the door handle, it opened from outside, revealing the same bodyguard from earlier. "Miss Mitchell will be joining me upstairs," Alexander informed him. "Ensure we're not disturbed." The elevator required a keycard and fingerprint, opening directly into what could only be described as a fortress disguised as a penthouse apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the Hudson River and the glittering city beyond, but I barely registered it, too aware of the closing distance between freedom and my current reality. "Drink?" he offered, moving toward a bar of gleaming dark wood and crystal decanters. "No, thank you." The last thing I needed was alcohol clouding my judgment. He poured himself something amber and gestured toward a seating area of sleek leather sofas. "Please sit." I perched on the edge of a sofa, still clutching my purse, as he took the seat across from me. The coffee table between us offered little comfort as a barrier. "Let me be direct, Miss Mitchell. I know you overheard Viktor Petrov discussing a federal operation targeting my business interests. What I need to know is what specifically was said about the nature of the evidence they claim to have." I stared at him, weighing my options. If I admitted overhearing anything, I implicated myself. If I continued denying it, he clearly wouldn't believe me, and God knows what would happen then. "I heard very little," I finally said, deciding that a partial truth was my safest bet. "Just that someone, your cousin apparently, was working with federal agents, and that they were moving on a shipment tonight. Then something about evidence, but they stopped talking when I approached the table again." Alexander's expression remained impassive, but his knuckles whitened around his glass. "Nothing about what kind of evidence, or where it's being kept," I shook my head. "Nothing specific, just that it would destroy you, and everyone goes down. That's it, I swear." He set his drink down and leaned forward, closing the distance between us. "And you told no one? Not even in passing? A text message to a friend, perhaps? A call during your break?" "No," I insisted. "Look, Mr. Sokolov, I have a 4-year-old daughter waiting for me at home. I work 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads since her father decided child support was optional. The last thing I need is to get involved in whatever this is. I just want to go home, hug my kid, and pretend this night never happened." Something shifted in his gaze at the mention of my daughter. A softening, perhaps, or a calculation. "What's her name?" he asked unexpectedly. My protective instincts flared. "Why would you ask that?" "Simple curiosity." "Lily," I answered reluctantly. "Her name is Lily." He nodded, as if committing it to memory. "And her father? He's not in the picture?" "No, and I'd like to keep it that way." Alexander stood in one fluid motion, buttoning his jacket. "I believe you, Miss Mitchell, but I'm afraid our association can't end here. What you've overheard puts you in a complicated position." My stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said, retrieving his phone from his pocket, "that until this situation is resolved, you and your daughter will need protection." "Protection? From what?" "From the people who would very much like to see me destroyed, the same people who would not hesitate to use anyone, even a waitress who was in the wrong place at the wrong time, to achieve that goal." Before I could protest, he was speaking rapid-fire Russian into his phone, pacing the length of the window. I caught words that sounded like "secure" and "immediately" before he ended the call. "Mr. Sokolov," I said, rising to my feet, fighting to keep my voice level. "I appreciate your concern, but Lily and I don't need protection. What we need is for me to go home and pretend I never heard anything." He approached me, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his gaze, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something woodsy and expensive, and feel the heat radiating from his body. "I'm afraid that's no longer an option," he said softly. "Viktor Petrov saw you serving that table. If what you overheard is true, then my cousin's federal friends already know about you too. They'll be looking for potential witnesses." "I'm nobody," I insisted. "Just a waitress. They have no reason to." "The FBI has been trying to build a case against me for years," he cut me off. "They'll use anyone, anything. And if they can't use you willingly, they'll find ways to compel your cooperation." A chill ran down my spine. "By threatening Lily," I whispered, the realization dawning with horrifying clarity. His eyes darkened. "Yes. But you're doing the same thing right now," I pointed out, anger flaring through my fear. Using my daughter as leverage. To my surprise, he took a step back, something like regret flickering across his features. "I'm offering protection, Miss Mitchell. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it feels like I've traded one threat for another. His jaw tightened at my accusation, a muscle ticking beneath the smooth skin. For a moment, I thought I'd pushed too far. Then something unexpected happened. Alexander Sokolov sighed, the sound weary and strangely human. "You're not wrong," he conceded, moving back toward the bar to refill his glass. "But my threat, as you call it, comes with a guarantee of safety. Theirs does not." My phone vibrated in my purse, startling me. Mrs. Patel, my elderly neighbor who watched Lily when I worked late. I checked the screen, heart hammering. "Is everything okay? You're usually home by now. Lily is asking for you." "Your daughter?" Alexander asked, watching me closely. I nodded, the reality of my situation hitting me with renewed force. "I need to go home. My neighbor. She's watching Lily, but she's 82 and goes to bed early. You can call her. Tell her there was an emergency at work, that you'll be late." It wasn't a suggestion. With trembling fingers, I dialed Mrs. Patel's number, turning slightly away from Alexander for the illusion of privacy. "Mrs. Patel? It's Eliza." "Yes, I'm so sorry. There was an incident at work." I swallowed hard, the lie bitter on my tongue. "A customer had a medical emergency, and I have to stay to give a statement. Could you possibly keep Lily overnight? I'll pick her up first thing in the morning and pay you extra." The old woman's concerned questions made tears prick at my eyes. She'd been a godsend since I moved into the building 3 years ago, treating Lily like the grandchild she rarely saw. "Yes, I'm fine. Just tired. Thank Lily for the drawing she made me, and tell her I love her to the moon and back." My voice cracked on the familiar phrase, our nightly ritual when I tucked her in. "I'll see you both tomorrow. Thank you so much." I ended the call, blinking rapidly to dispel the moisture threatening to spill from my eyes. When I turned back, Alexander was studying me with an unreadable expression. "You're a good mother," he said quietly. "You don't know anything about me. I know enough." He set down his glass. "We need to leave. My men have reported suspicious activity near your apartment building." Ice flooded my veins. "What? What kind of suspicious activity?" 2 men in an unmarked sedan have been parked across the street for the past hour. They match the description of federal agents who have been surveilling my operations. "How do you know where I live?" I demanded, though the answer was obvious. Of course he would have had me investigated the moment I overheard something I shouldn't have. Instead of answering, he moved to a closet near the entryway, retrieving a dark cashmere coat. "You'll need this. It's colder by the river at night. I'm not going anywhere with you until you tell me exactly what's happening," I insisted, ignoring the proffered coat. "And how my daughter will be protected." His eyes flashed with something that might have been respect. "Your neighbor and daughter are being watched by my security team as we speak. They were in place before you ever stepped foot in my car. If federal agents approach, they'll be intercepted." Intercepted how? Visions of gunfire and violence flashed through my mind. I don't want anyone hurt because of me. "My men are under strict orders to observe only," he assured me, still holding out the coat. "Unless direct intervention becomes necessary. Now please, we need to move quickly." The pleading note in his voice, however slight, was what finally convinced me. I took the coat, drowning in its luxurious weight, the sleeves hanging past my fingertips. Alexander reached out, gently rolling them back to free my hands, his fingers brushing against my wrists. The brief contact sent an unexpected shiver through me that had nothing to do with fear. A different elevator took us down to a service area, where another car, this one a nondescript black SUV, waited with the engine running. A different driver, a different bodyguard, the choreography of wealth and power. "Where are we going?" I asked as we pulled away from the building, heading north. "Somewhere safe," was all he said, his attention on his phone, typing rapid-fire messages. After a moment, he turned to me. "I need your keys." "My keys?" "To your apartment. My people need to retrieve some things for you and your daughter." The thought of strangers pawing through our meager possessions made me sick. "Absolutely not." "Eliza," he said softly, the first time he'd used my first name. "I understand your reluctance, but you need clothes, toiletries, whatever medications you might take, and your daughter needs her things. Her favorite toy, perhaps? Whatever would make this transition easier for her. I hated that he was right, hated even more the thought of Lily waking up tomorrow in a strange place without Mr. Snuggles, the threadbare teddy bear she'd had since birth. Fine, I conceded, digging in my purse for my keychain. But I'm making a list of exactly what they should get and where to find it. He produced a small notebook and pen from his jacket pocket as I wrote down detailed instructions. Mr. Snuggles on Lily's bed, her favorite purple pajamas in the second drawer, my medication in the bathroom cabinet. I felt a strange sense of surrender washing over me. I was no longer in control of my own life. I handed him the list and keys. If anything happens to her things, it won't, he assured me, tucking both into his pocket before making another call. The city lights blurred past the window as we drove, crossing into what appeared to be Westchester County. Eventually, the urban sprawl gave way to expansive properties set back from the road, hidden behind iron gates and stone walls. The SUV turned onto a private drive, winding through manicured grounds before stopping before a mansion that seemed to have materialized from another century, all stone and ivy and Gothic spires. "Welcome to my family estate," Alexander said, noting my wide-eyed expression. "It's been in the Sokolov family for 3 generations. You'll be safe here." A woman waited for us in the grand foyer, tall, blonde, impeccably dressed in a simple black dress and pearls despite the late hour. Her eyes, the same deep brown as Alexander's, assessed me with cool detachment. "This is my sister, Natalia," Alexander introduced us. "She'll show you to your room and make sure you have everything you need for tonight." Natalia's smile didn't reach her eyes. "A pleasure, Miss Mitchell, if you'll follow me." I looked uncertainly at Alexander, who nodded reassuringly. "Get some rest. We'll discuss our next steps in the morning." Reluctantly, I followed Natalia up a sweeping staircase, through corridors lined with what appeared to be original artwork worth more than I'd earn in several lifetimes. She led me to a bedroom larger than my entire apartment, all cream and gold with a 4-poster bed draped in silk. "The bathroom is through there," she said, gesturing to a door. "You'll find toiletries, a robe, everything you might need. My brother's men will bring your things when they arrive." "Thank you," I said awkwardly, still wearing the oversized cashmere coat, feeling wildly out of place in my waitress uniform. Natalia lingered by the door, studying me with undisguised curiosity. "You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Alexander doesn't usually involve himself personally in complications." The way she said complications made it clear exactly what category I fell into. "I didn't ask to be involved," I said stiffly. Something softened in her expression. "No, I don't imagine you did. Good night, Miss Mitchell. The door locks from the inside, if that provides any comfort." After she left, I tested the lock, then systematically explored the room, checking the windows, securely locked, overlooking manicured gardens, the closet, empty save for a few silk hangers, and the bathroom, stocked with products that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Finding no immediate means of escape or communication with the outside world, I sank onto the edge of the bed, the events of the evening crashing over me in waves. I was effectively a prisoner, separated from my daughter, caught in the crosshairs of a power struggle I barely understood. And yet, Alexander Sokolov had not harmed me, had even, in his way, shown concern for Lily's welfare. Was it possible he was telling the truth about protecting us? The alternative was too terrifying to contemplate. Exhaustion overtook me, and I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, there was a soft knock at the door. Dawn light filtered through the gauzy curtains, casting the unfamiliar room in a golden glow. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was, reaching instinctively for Lily before reality came crashing back. The knock came again, more insistent. "Who is it?" I called, voice rough with sleep. "It's Alexander. May I come in? I have your things." I hurried to unlock the door, suddenly conscious of my rumpled appearance after sleeping in my uniform. Alexander stood in the hallway, impeccably dressed in another bespoke suit, this one navy blue. Behind him, a man held several bags, my beat-up duffel and Lily's small pink backpack. "Everything on your list," Alexander assured me, as the man set the bags inside the door and departed without a word. I had them bring a few extra items for your daughter as well. Clothes, books. I wasn't sure what she might need. The unexpected thoughtfulness caught me off guard. Thank you. You're welcome. When you're ready, breakfast is being served in the small dining room. First floor, east wing. Natalia will show you. We have matters to discuss. What about Lily? When can I see her? His expression remained carefully neutral. That's one of the matters we need to discuss. I'll see you downstairs. After he left, I rummaged through the bags, relief washing over me to find Mr. Snuggles tucked safely inside, along with Lily's favorite books, and the blanket my mother had made her before she passed away. My own bag contained a random assortment of clothing, my toothbrush, and the prescription anti-anxiety medication I rarely took but kept for emergencies. This certainly qualified as an emergency. I showered quickly, the luxury of the marble bathroom a stark contrast to the rusted fixtures in my apartment, and dressed in jeans and a simple blue sweater. With my damp hair pulled back and the barest minimum of makeup from my purse, I looked almost normal. Almost like a woman who wasn't being held in a mansion by a man who might or might not be a dangerous criminal. Natalia was waiting in the hallway, her smile marginally warmer than the previous night. You look refreshed. The blue suits you. Thanks, I mumbled, following her through the labyrinthine corridors of the mansion. Morning light streamed through stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on the polished wooden floors. The small dining room turned out to be larger than most restaurants, though only one end of the massive table was set for breakfast. Alexander rose as we entered, pulling out a chair for me adjacent to his own. Coffee? Tea? Coffee, please. Black. A server appeared from nowhere, filling my cup with steaming dark liquid that smelled like heaven. Fresh fruit, pastries, and an assortment of hot dishes were laid out on silver serving trays. My stomach growled embarrassingly. Please eat, Alexander encouraged. You must be hungry. I was starving, but reluctant to show any sign of settling in. Still, I helped myself to some fruit and a croissant, the buttery layers melting on my tongue. Where is my daughter? I asked, setting down my coffee cup with deliberate control. You said we would discuss her this morning. Alexander exchanged a look with Natalia before answering. Your daughter is currently being brought here, along with your neighbor, Mrs. Patel. They left your apartment building an hour ago in one of my cars. My heart leapt. Lily is coming here? Now? Yes. I thought it best to keep you together, given the circumstances. Relief flooded through me, quickly followed by suspicion. What circumstances exactly? You still haven't explained what's really going on. Alexander dabbed his mouth with a napkin, setting it aside before leaning forward, his dark eyes intense. What's going on is that my cousin Mikhail has been working with the FBI for months, feeding them information, planting evidence. Last night, based on what you overheard, they moved on a shipment at the docks that they believed contained illegal weapons. Did it? I couldn't help asking. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. No. It contained luxury furniture from Italy, completely legitimate, but they were convinced otherwise, thanks to Mikhail. Why would your cousin betray you? Money. Power. Revenge. Alexander's expression hardened. Mikhail has always resented that my father chose me to take over the family business after his death. He believes he was entitled to more. The family business being import, export, real estate, investment banking, all legitimate enterprises, despite what the federal authorities might believe. I raised an eyebrow, skepticism evident. If everything is so legitimate, why am I being held here? Why does my daughter need protection? Because Mikhail's deception goes beyond business. He's made it personal. Alexander's hand clenched around his coffee cup. He's planted evidence implicating me in crimes I didn't commit. And he's willing to use anyone, including an innocent waitress and her child, to strengthen his case. What kind of evidence? I pressed. Financial records, altered to suggest money laundering. Communications fabricated to implicate me in smuggling operations. And now potentially a witness. Me? I stared at him, incredulous. But I didn't witness anything illegal. What you witnessed was Viktor Petrov discussing a federal operation with another associate. Viktor works for me, but he's also Mikhail's cousin on his mother's side. I believe he was intentionally having that conversation where you could overhear it. But why? I don't understand. Alexander's eyes never left mine. Because they need someone without direct ties to me, someone who appears innocent and credible to corroborate their fabricated evidence. A single mother working honest jobs to support her child? You're perfect. The implications crashed over me. They set me up to be their witness against you? Yes. And when you disappeared from your shift last night without explanation, you confirmed their suspicions that you had heard something important. His voice softened fractionally. I'm sorry, Eliza. You were drawn into this through no fault of your own. My head spun with the implications. So what happens now? Lily and I just stay here indefinitely? Until I can resolve the situation with Mikhail and clear my name, yes. It's the only way to ensure your safety and your daughter's. I set down my fork, appetite gone. And if I refuse? If I want to leave? Take Lily? And disappear somewhere? The light caught Alexander's eyes as he leaned forward, turning them almost golden. Then I would have no choice but to let you go. But I would strongly advise against it. Mikhail knows who you are, where you live. My resources for protection far exceed what you could manage on your own. A soft knock at the door interrupted us. Natalia rose to answer it, exchanging quiet words with someone in the hallway before turning back to us, her expression softening. Your daughter and Mrs. Patel have arrived, she announced. They're in the west parlor. I was on my feet instantly, heart pounding. Take me to them. Now. Alexander stood as well, adjusting his suit jacket. Of course. But Eliza... He reached out, his fingers gently encircling my wrist. Please don't say anything that might frighten your daughter. As far as she knows, this is a pleasant, unexpected vacation. Let's keep it that way. The touch of his hand on my skin sent an inexplicable warmth spreading up my arm, but I pulled away sharply. Don't tell me how to protect my child. His expression remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes, hurt, perhaps, or frustration. Without another word, he gestured for me to follow Natalia, who led us through more winding corridors to a sun-drenched room overlooking a garden. And there, building a tower of colorful blocks on a plush carpet, was my daughter. Mommy! Lily's delighted cry tore through me as she abandoned her blocks and ran toward me, her dark curls bouncing, chubby arms outstretched. I dropped to my knees, gathering her against my chest, breathing in the familiar scent of baby shampoo and the indefinable essence that was purely Lily. I missed you so much, baby, I whispered, kissing the top of her head, tears threatening to spill over. Look at this big castle, Mommy. She pulled back, her blue eyes, so like her father's, the only good thing he'd given her, wide with excitement. And I have a princess bed. Mrs. Patel said we're on vacation. That's right, sweetheart, I managed, my voice thick. Over Lily's shoulder, I caught Mrs. Patel's eye. My elderly neighbor sat on a velvet sofa, looking bewildered but comfortable, a cup of tea in her gnarled hands. Mr. Alexander gave me new crayons, Lily continued, oblivious to the tension in the room. Look how many colors. She dragged me by the hand to show me a brand new set of artist-quality crayons, spread out on a small table, alongside thick drawing paper. I looked up to find Alexander watching us from the doorway, his expression unreadable. Thank you, I said quietly, the words inadequate for the relief of holding my daughter again, yet all I could offer. He inclined his head slightly, a barely perceptible nod, before addressing Lily directly. Do you like to draw, Miss Lily? My daughter, normally shy with strangers, especially men, nodded enthusiastically. I'm making a picture of a unicorn. Want to see? I would be honored. To my astonishment, Alexander Sokolov, alleged Mafia boss and the man effectively holding us captive, crossed the room and knelt beside my 4-year-old, examining her drawing with apparent interest. The contrast between his imposing frame in the tailored suit and my tiny daughter with her wild curls and unicorn t-shirt was surreal. Excellent use of color, he commented seriously. You have a good eye for composition. Lily beamed, immediately reaching for a purple crayon to continue her masterpiece. Alexander rose, brushing invisible lint from his trousers, and turned to me. Mrs. Patel has agreed to stay as well, to help with Lily. I've assured her that her apartment and belongings will be secure in her absence. My eyes narrowed. What exactly did you tell her? Only that you're doing me a professional favor that requires temporary relocation, and that you requested her presence for Lily's comfort. His voice lowered. She believes I'm a client of your accounting firm. I don't have an accounting firm. She's 82 and didn't ask many questions. The important thing is that your daughter has familiar faces around her. I couldn't argue with that logic, however manipulative. Fine. But this can't go on indefinitely. I have bills to pay, work to do. Your financial obligations are being taken care of, he said dismissively, and you'll be compensated generously for your inconvenience. I don't want your money, I hissed, keeping my voice low enough that Lily wouldn't hear. I want my life back. Alexander's jaw tightened. That's precisely what I'm trying to ensure you keep, Eliza. Your life. The next few days passed in a surreal blur. The Sokolov estate became our gilded cage. Beautiful, expansive, and utterly isolating. Lily, of course, thought it was magical. She explored the gardens with Mrs. Patel, discovered a room filled with antique toys that Alexander claimed had belonged to his nieces, and even befriended the stern-faced security personnel who patrolled the grounds. I, on the other hand, felt the walls closing in with each passing hour. My phone had been confiscated for security reasons, replaced with a device that could only call within the estate. The internet access was restricted, the televisions programmed to avoid news channels. We were being protected, Alexander insisted. I felt imprisoned. On our fourth morning, I found him in the library, bent over papers spread across an antique desk. Dawn light slanted through the tall windows, catching the silver at his temples I hadn't noticed before. We need to talk, I announced, closing the heavy door behind me. Alexander looked up, setting aside his reading glasses. The gesture made him seem suddenly human, vulnerable even. Good morning to you too, Eliza. It's been 4 days. I need to know what's happening, when this will end. He gestured to the chair across from him. Please sit. I remained standing. Just tell me. Very well. He leaned back, studying me with those penetrating eyes. My people have identified the evidence Mikhail planted. Digital records primarily, linking me to illegal arms shipments. They're working to trace the fabrication, prove it was manufactured. And how long will that take? Difficult to say. Days. Perhaps weeks. Weeks? My voice rose despite my effort to stay calm. Alexander, I can't stay here for weeks. Lily needs stability, routine. I need to work. I understand your frustration. No, you don't. I cut him off. You have no idea what it's like to be trapped somewhere, dependent on someone else's whims and timeline, to have your entire life upended overnight. Something dark flickered across his features. You might be surprised by what I understand, Eliza. The quiet intensity in his voice made me pause. For the first time, I really looked at him. The subtle tension in his shoulders, the faint shadows beneath his eyes suggesting sleepless nights. What aren't you telling me? I asked, softening my approach. Alexander sighed, gesturing again to the chair. This time I sat. Mikhail's betrayal goes beyond business, he said, choosing his words carefully. It's deeply personal. We were raised as brothers after my uncle, his father, was killed. My father took him in, treated him as his own. And now? He wants to destroy you, I finished. Yes, and he's willing to use anyone, hurt anyone to achieve that. His gaze met mine, unflinching, including you and Lily. A chill ran through me. Has there been a threat, specifically against us? He hesitated just long enough to confirm my fears before answering. My sources indicate that federal agents visited your workplace, your apartment. They're looking for you, asking questions about your relationship with me. But we don't have a relationship. I'd never even met you before that night. Mikhail has suggested otherwise. He's painting a picture of you as my confidant, perhaps more. Someone who has witnessed my alleged criminal activities firsthand. The implications turned my blood cold. That's insane. No one would believe that. People believe what supports their existing narrative. Alexander's voice was gentle, almost sad. The FBI has been trying to build a case against me for years. They're eager to accept Mikhail's fabrications. I pressed my fingertips to my temples, trying to process this new information. So I'm not just a witness now. I'm your accomplice? In their version of events, yes. And what happens when they can't find me to corroborate this story? Won't that weaken their case? Alexander's expression darkened. It would, if they believed you were simply unavailable. But Mikhail has suggested something more sinister. My stomach dropped. What? That I've eliminated a liability. The clinical way he said it, eliminated a liability, sent a shiver down my spine. He's telling them you killed me? Not explicitly. Just raising the possibility that your disappearance might not be voluntary. I leaned forward, gripping the edge of the desk. So let me go. Let me walk into a police station and tell them I'm fine, that I've never witnessed anything illegal, that I barely know who you are, and sacrifice the safety that provides you and Lily? His voice lowered. They wouldn't believe you, Eliza. They'd assume you were coerced, threatened. And they'd be right about one thing: you would be in danger the moment you left my protection. Just not from me. The frustration and fear I'd been battling for days surged to the surface. So this is my life now? Hiding away in your mansion indefinitely? What about Lily's school? My jobs? Everything I've worked for? It won't be indefinite. I promise you that. Alexander stood, moving around the desk until he was beside me. I have people working day and night to unravel Mikhail's deception, to prove the evidence was fabricated. And if they can't? His hand covered mine on the desk, warm, surprisingly calloused for a man of his wealth. They will. I won't allow you and your daughter to pay the price for my family's sins. The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard, as did the simple human contact. How long had it been since someone had touched me with such gentleness? Not since before Lily's father had walked out, claiming parenthood was cramping his lifestyle. Alexander seemed to realize he'd crossed some invisible boundary and withdrew his hand. I've made arrangements for a tutor for Lily, by the way. She mentioned she'll be starting kindergarten soon. I thought perhaps some pre-kindergarten lessons might help maintain that routine you spoke of. The thoughtfulness of the gesture, remembering such a small detail about my daughter, left me momentarily speechless. This man, who could be orchestrating violence and crime from behind his elegant desk, had concerned himself with my 4-year-old's education. Thank you, I said finally. That would be good for her. A tentative smile touched his lips. Excellent. And perhaps there might be something here to occupy your time as well. I understand you studied accounting before Lily was born? I stared at him, astonished. How could you possibly know that? I make it my business to know the people under my protection. The smile widened slightly, and Mrs. Patel is quite talkative when offered premium Earl Grey tea. Despite everything, I felt a reluctant laugh bubble up. I did 2 years of accounting courses at community college. Had to drop out when I got pregnant. The estate's financial manager could use assistance with quarterly reports, if you're interested. The offer dangled between us, a small piece of normalcy, purpose. A way to reclaim some agency in a situation where I had none. I'll think about it, I said, unwilling to concede too easily. He nodded, accepting the boundary. The offer stands. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a video conference in 10 minutes. As I turned to leave, his voice stopped me at the door. Eliza? I looked back at him. This enigma of a man who had upended my life. I am sorry for all of this. The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable, and for a moment, I glimpsed something beneath the controlled exterior, regret, perhaps, or loneliness. I know, I said softly, and left him to his empire of paper and power. That night, after tucking Lily into her princess bed and reading 3 stories, I wandered the quiet hallways of the mansion, restless with pent-up energy and anxiety. The security staff nodded respectfully as I passed, no longer hovering quite so closely. Either they'd decided I wasn't a flight risk, or Alexander had ordered them to give me space. My aimless wandering led me to a balcony overlooking the rear gardens, the night air crisp with approaching autumn. The stars seemed impossibly bright away from the city's light pollution, a canopy of diamonds against velvet blackness. Couldn't sleep. I startled at Alexander's voice, turning to find him leaning against the doorframe, his usual immaculate suit replaced by dark jeans and a simple black sweater. The casual attire transformed him, making him look younger, less intimidating. Just needed some air, I replied. This place can feel suffocating despite its size. I know the feeling. He joined me at the balustrade, keeping a respectful distance. I grew up here, but spent most of my childhood finding ways to escape. There's a gap in the hedge on the east side. Leads to a stream. Used to spend hours there, pretending I was anywhere else. The image of a young Alexander Sokolov, seeking freedom from golden chains, was strangely poignant. Why did you want to escape? He looked out at the darkness, profile illuminated by moonlight. My father had very specific expectations. The heir to the Sokolov legacy had little time for childhood frivolities. Sounds lonely. It was. He turned to me, something vulnerable in his expression. Your daughter is fortunate to have a mother who prioritizes her happiness. I try. It's not always easy. The things most worth doing rarely are. We stood in companionable silence, the night air wrapping around us like a shared secret. It struck me how quickly circumstances could change. Just days ago, this man had been a terrifying enigma, a threat to my safety. Now, in the moonlight, he seemed almost human. Would you like a drink? Alexander asked, breaking the quiet. I find cognac helps on sleepless nights. I hesitated, then nodded. Why not? He led me through the mansion to a smaller, more intimate sitting room I hadn't seen before. A fire burned low in the hearth, casting dancing shadows across plush furniture and bookshelves that stretched to the ceiling. Unlike the formal, museum-like quality of the main rooms, this space felt lived in, personal. Your private sanctuary? I asked, taking in the worn leather of the armchair, the stack of books on the side table. Alexander smiled faintly, pouring amber liquid into crystal glasses. My father's, originally. Now mine. One of the few places in this house where I can simply be. He handed me a glass, our fingers brushing momentarily. To unexpected acquaintances, he toasted. Is that what we are? I took a small sip, the cognac burning pleasantly down my throat. Acquaintances? Something flickered in his eyes. What would you call us, Eliza? Captor and captive comes to mind, I said, though the words lacked their earlier bite. Is that truly how you feel? His voice had softened, almost vulnerable. Like my prisoner? The honesty of the question demanded an honest answer. I don't know what to feel anymore. Everything's happened so fast. One minute I'm serving champagne, the next I'm caught in some elaborate Mafia revenge plot. I'm not. He stopped himself, taking a long drink. The situation is complicated. Then uncomplicate it for me. I moved closer, emboldened by the cognac and the intimate setting. Who are you really, Alexander Sokolov? Because the man who remembers my daughter's favorite stuffed animal and arranges tutoring doesn't match the man who's supposedly involved in arms dealing and money laundering. He studied me over the rim of his glass, as if weighing how much to reveal. My family came to America with nothing, fleeing the Soviet Union in the 1980s. My father built an empire through relentless work, cutthroat business tactics, and yes, connections that weren't always above board. And you inherited all of it. I inherited the legacy, the expectations, the enemies. His voice hardened. And the responsibility to protect what's mine. Including random waitresses who overhear things they shouldn't? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Especially them. We sat before the fire, the expensive cognac warming my veins, loosening the tight knot of anxiety that had lived in my chest since that night in the restaurant. Alexander refilled our glasses, and somehow the conversation shifted from the immediate crisis to more personal territories. I found myself telling him about my childhood in a small Midwestern town, my dreams of becoming an accountant, the whirlwind romance with Lily's father that had ended with him walking out when I was 7 months pregnant, his loss. Alexander said simply, when I finished that part of my story. Any man would be fortunate to have a family with someone like you. The compliment, delivered with such straightforward sincerity, brought unexpected heat to my cheeks. "What about you? No wife hidden away in another wing of the mansion?" He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "No wife, no girlfriend. My lifestyle doesn't lend itself well to relationships." "Because of the danger? Because of the deception?" He swirled the cognac in his glass, watching the liquid catch the firelight. "Most relationships can't survive the necessary lies, the constant vigilance." "The illegal activities?" I suggested. Alexander's eyes met mine, unexpectedly earnest. "I run legitimate businesses, Eliza. Import, export, real estate, technology investments. Are there gray areas? Yes. Have I bent rules? Certainly. But I'm not the criminal mastermind the FBI believes me to be. Then why are they so convinced otherwise? History, perception, my father's reputation." He sighed. "And because men like me, men with power, with Russian names and suspicious fortunes, make convenient villains." I wanted to believe him, more than I should have. "And Mikhail? Why betray his own family?" A shadow passed over Alexander's features. "Mikhail believes he was cheated of his birthright, that my father favored me unfairly. The truth is more complicated. It usually is." Our eyes locked across the small space between us, some unspoken current passing between us. In the firelight, with his guard down, Alexander was devastatingly handsome. The sharp angles of his face softened, dark eyes reflecting flames. "You should get some sleep," he said suddenly, setting down his glass. "It's late." The abrupt shift in his demeanor was jarring. Had I imagined that moment of connection? "Right, of course." I stood, smoothing non-existent wrinkles from my jeans. "Thank you for the drink and the conversation." He walked me to the door, maintaining a careful distance now. "Good night, Eliza." "Good night, Alexander." As I navigated the darkened corridors back to my room, I tried to make sense of the conflicting emotions swirling through me. This man had effectively kidnapped me, separated me from my life, held me in a gilded cage. Yet I found myself drawn to him in ways I couldn't explain, or perhaps didn't want to acknowledge. The following days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Mornings with Lily and her new tutor, a kind-faced woman named Ms. Chen, who had Lily writing her name and counting to 20 within days. Afternoons helping the estate's financial manager, losing myself in the familiar comfort of spreadsheets and calculations. Evenings with Alexander, when he was present. Sometimes formal dinners with Natalia, sometimes quiet conversations in his private study. I told myself it was Stockholm Syndrome, developing attachment to my captor as a survival mechanism. But in my more honest moments, I knew it was something else entirely. Something dangerous. A week after our fireside conversation, everything changed. I was in the garden with Lily, watching her chase butterflies across the manicured lawn, when Natalia appeared, her usual composed expression replaced with tight-lipped concern. "Alexander needs to see you," she said quietly. "Immediately. Mrs. Patel will watch Lily." "What's wrong?" She just shook her head, leading me quickly through the house to Alexander's study. He was on the phone when we entered, speaking rapid-fire Russian, his free hand clenched in a white-knuckled fist on the desk. When he saw me, he abruptly ended the call. "What's happened?" I asked, heart racing at his expression. "Mikhail has escalated the situation." His voice was controlled, but I could hear the fury simmering beneath. "He's given an interview to a journalist, claiming you were my mistress who witnessed illegal activities and has now disappeared under suspicious circumstances." The blood drained from my face. "What? That's insane. I'd never even met you before that night." "I know that. But the story is already spreading online. Your photo from your waitressing job's staff page is being circulated." Horror washed over me. My face is being shown alongside accusations about being a criminal's mistress? What if Lily sees that someday? What about my reputation? My future employment? Alexander crossed the room, taking my trembling hands in his. "I will fix this, Eliza. I promise you." "How?" I pulled away, pacing the room. "How can you possibly fix the fact that I'm now being publicly linked to the Russian Mafia? The people think I'm either your accomplice or your victim. We have options." His voice remained steady. "My lawyers can issue denials. threaten the publication with lawsuits for defamation. Or what? He hesitated, clearly reluctant to voice the alternative. Tell me, I insisted, or we give them a different story. One that explains your presence here without the criminal implications. A cold realization dawned. You want me to publicly claim I am your mistress? Not mistress, he corrected quickly, but perhaps a new relationship. It would explain your sudden departure from your regular life, your presence here. We could control the narrative. Anger flared, hot and sudden. You want me to pretend to be dating you? To willingly attach my name, and by extension, my daughter's life to yours permanently? Are you insane? It's not ideal, I admit. Not ideal, I laughed, the sound brittle with hysteria. It's absolutely out of the question. I won't have Lily grow up with her mother known as the Mafia boss's girlfriend, real or otherwise. Alexander's jaw tightened. Then what do you suggest? Because right now, the narrative painting you as either my accomplice or my victim is spreading. At least this way, we control the story. I suggest you do what you promised. Find the evidence Mikhail planted, clear your name, and let us go back to our lives. I'm trying, he said, voice raw with frustration, but these things take time, and Mikhail is moving faster than anticipated. He's desperate, which makes him dangerous. Dangerous to who? You? Or me and Lily? His silence was answer enough. Oh God. I sank into a chair, the full weight of our situation crashing down. He's going to come after us directly, isn't he? To strengthen his story. Alexander knelt before me, his large hands covering mine. I won't let that happen, Eliza. I will protect you and Lily with my life if necessary. The fierce conviction in his voice sent an unexpected shiver through me. Why? Why risk everything for us? We're nothing to you. His dark eyes held mine, something unspoken burning in their depths. You're not nothing. 3 simple words, you're not nothing. Yet they reverberated through me like thunder. Alexander's gaze held mine, unguarded for perhaps the first time since we'd met. What I saw there stole my breath, determination, protectiveness, and something else entirely, something I wasn't ready to name. Alexander, I began, unsure what I even wanted to say. The door burst open, shattering the moment. One of Alexander's security team stood there, breathing hard. Sir, we have a situation. Perimeter breach on the east side, 3 vehicles approaching the main gate. Alexander was on his feet instantly, all vulnerability vanishing behind a mask of cold efficiency. Federal agents? Unknown, sir, but they're heavily armed, not standard FBI protocol. Mikhail, Alexander breathed, face hardening into granite. He's done waiting for the feds to build their case. He turned to me, eyes intense. Where's Lily? In the garden with Mrs. Patel, I said, panic rising like bile. What's happening? He was already moving, barking orders into a phone. Natalia, lockdown protocol. Get the child and the old woman to the safe room. Now. Safe room? Lockdown protocol? The surreal nature of my situation hit me anew as Alexander guided me swiftly through the mansion, his hand firm at the small of my back. Security personnel materialized from seemingly nowhere, weapons drawn, moving with practiced precision. Alexander, you're scaring me, I managed, trying to keep pace with his long strides. Good. Fear will keep you alert. His voice was clipped, all traces of the man by the firelight gone. My cousin has apparently decided to take matters into his own hands. If he can't convince the authorities I've harmed you, he'll do it himself. Ice flooded my veins. What does that mean? He stopped abruptly, turning to face me, hands gripping my shoulders. It means he's coming to kidnap you, maybe kill you, and blame it on me. The perfect evidence to complete his fabricated case. But that's insane. He'd murder an innocent person just to frame you? Alexander's eyes darkened. Mikhail crossed the line from sanity long ago. Blood feuds in my family tend to escalate. A series of sharp pops echoed from outside. Gunfire. My heart threatened to burst from my chest. Lily, I gasped, trying to pull away. I need to find Lily. Natalia has her. She's taking her to the safe room. He pulled me down a corridor I'd never seen before, toward what appeared to be a blank wall. With practiced movements, he pressed a sequence on a panel hidden behind a painting. The wall slid open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. "You have a literal secret passage?" I would have laughed if terror hadn't been choking me. Old house. Old secrets. He ushered me forward. "Go. Natalia will be waiting with Lily at the bottom." I hesitated, suddenly afraid to leave him. "What about you?" For a brief moment, something almost tender flickered across his features. His hand rose to my cheek, thumb brushing across my skin with unexpected gentleness. "I have a family to protect." Before I could respond, he had pressed a small handgun into my palm. The metal was cold, heavy, terrifying in its solidity. "Just in case," he murmured. "Straight down the stairs, second door on the right. Don't open for anyone but me or Natalia." Then he was gone, the hidden door sliding closed between us, leaving me alone in the dimly lit passageway with a gun I barely knew how to hold. The journey down the narrow stairs felt eternal, each step bringing fresh terrors to my imagination. More gunshots echoed above, muffled but unmistakable. I clutched the weapon, praying I wouldn't need to use it, praying even harder that Lily was safe. The second door on the right was heavy steel, disguised on this side as aged wood. I knocked, voice cracking as I called, "Natalia? It's Eliza." The door opened a crack, Natalia's face appearing in the narrow gap. Relief flooded her features as she pulled me inside, quickly securing the multiple locks behind me. "Mommy!" Lily launched herself at me from a plush sofa, her small body colliding with mine. I dropped to my knees, gathering her close, burying my face in her curls to hide my tears. "Hey, baby," I managed, pulling back to study her face. She seemed calm, excited even, blissfully unaware of the danger. "What are you doing down here?" "Miss Natalia says we're playing a special hide-and-seek game," Lily explained, eyes bright. "We're hiding, and Mr. Alexander has to find us. And look." She pointed proudly to a coloring book and crayons spread across a coffee table. "I'm making him a surprise for when he wins." My eyes met Natalia's over Lily's head, silent gratitude passing between us for shielding her from the truth. The safe room was more like a comfortable apartment, with multiple rooms branching off from a central living area. Supplies lined the walls: food, water, medical equipment. A bank of monitors showed security feeds from around the property, currently displaying chaotic scenes of armed men exchanging gunfire with Alexander's security team. "How bad is it?" I asked Natalia in a low voice, keeping Lily occupied with her drawing. She glanced at the monitors, her aristocratic features tight with worry. "Mikhail brought more men than expected, and they seem professional, not just hired muscle. Where's Alexander?" As if summoned by his name, one monitor showed Alexander moving tactically through the mansion's east wing, flanked by 2 security guards. He carried a weapon with practiced ease, his movements those of a man familiar with violence. "He's drawing them away from our location," Natalia explained. "Standard protocol. There's nothing standard about any of this," I whispered, the reality of my situation crashing down anew. One minute I'm serving champagne, the next I'm in a bulletproof panic room while Mafia factions shoot at each other. Natalia's hand covered mine, surprisingly warm. "My brother will protect us, all of us." "Why?" The question that had been burning inside me for days finally escaped. Why risk everything for me and Lily? We're strangers to him. Something knowing flickered in Natalia's eyes. "Are you really so blind? Have you not seen how he looks at you?" Heat rushed to my face. That's ridiculous. We barely know each other." "Alexander has known many people in his life, Eliza. Business associates, political allies, countless beautiful women. But in all his 38 years, I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." "What way is that?" I asked, almost afraid of the answer. "Like a man who's found something worth living for, beyond duty, beyond the family legacy." Her gaze shifted to Lily, happily coloring at the table. "You gave him a glimpse of what he's been missing. A real family, built on love rather than obligation and fear." I shook my head, unwilling to process the implications. Even if that were true, which is absurd, it doesn't change who he is, what he does. "And what is that exactly?" Natalia challenged. "Do you really know, or are you believing the same stories the FBI does?" Before I could answer, the monitor showing Alexander suddenly erupted in chaos. Gunfire flashed, the camera angle shifting wildly as one of his men fell. I watched in horror as Alexander took cover behind a marble column, returning fire with calculating precision. Then another figure entered the frame, a man resembling Alexander but leaner, with features twisted in hatred. He shouted something, gesturing wildly with his weapon. "Mikhail," Natalia breathed, tension radiating from her body. The cousins faced each other across the grand foyer, weapons raised, decades of resentment crystallized into this deadly confrontation. Their lips moved, but the security feed had no audio. Whatever Mikhail said made Alexander's expression darken dangerously. Then, to my horror, Mikhail gestured toward the direction of the safe room. He knew where we were. The next moments unfolded in slow motion. Mikhail raised his weapon, not at Alexander, but toward the wing concealing our location. Alexander lunged forward, placing himself in the line of fire. The muzzle flashed, and Alexander staggered, red blooming across his white shirt. "No!" The cry tore from my throat before I could stop it. On screen, Alexander recovered, returning fire with deadly accuracy. Mikhail crumpled to the floor, weapon clattering away. Alexander stood over his fallen cousin, speaking words we couldn't hear, before turning his attention to his own wound. "He's hurt," I whispered, fear gripping my heart for reasons I wasn't ready to examine. Natalia was already moving to the safe room's communication system. "Medical team to the main foyer," she ordered, her voice calm despite the situation. "Security sweep of all sectors. Confirm hostiles contained." Responses crackled through, confirming that Mikhail's men were either subdued or retreating. The immediate danger had passed, but Alexander's condition remained unknown. The security feed showed him leaning heavily against a wall, hand pressed to his side, crimson seeping between his fingers. "I need to go to him," I said, rising to my feet. "Absolutely not," Natalia countered. "Protocol demands we stay here until—" "I don't care about your protocol," I snapped, glancing at Lily to ensure she was still absorbed in her coloring. "He's injured, possibly dying, because he protected us." Something in my voice must have convinced her, because after a long moment, Natalia nodded. "Stay with the child," she instructed Mrs. Patel, who had been quietly knitting in the corner, seemingly unfazed by the violence on the monitors. "We'll return soon." We navigated the mansion's winding corridors, passing signs of the recent gunfight, shattered vases, bullet holes in priceless artwork, security personnel securing wounded intruders. In the grand foyer, medical staff surrounded Alexander, who was sitting upright despite their attempts to make him lie down. "Stubborn as always," Natalia muttered, but the relief in her voice was palpable. Alexander looked up as we approached, his face pale but determined. "You should be in the safe room," he admonished, then winced as a medic applied pressure to his wound. "You're shot," I stated flatly, kneeling beside him. "Because of me." "A graze," he dismissed. "Mikhail was always a terrible shot." "And Mikhail?" Natalia asked, glancing at the empty spot where we'd seen him fall. "Alive, unfortunately," Alexander grimaced, "being transported to the boathouse under guard. He'll face consequences for this, legal ones," he added, seeing my expression. As medics helped Alexander to his feet, his gaze locked with mine. "Are you and Lily all right?" The question, so earnest despite his own injury, broke something inside me. "Why?" I demanded, tears threatening. "Why would you take a bullet for us? Why risk everything?" The crowd around us seemed to fade away as Alexander reached for my hand, clasping it in his blood-stained one. "Because in a lifetime of protecting things, property, business interests, family legacy, I finally found people worth protecting." 3 weeks later, I stood in Alexander's study, watching autumn leaves dance across the manicured lawn through the tall windows. So much had changed since the day of Mikhail's attack. Evidence recovered from Mikhail's home had confirmed Alexander's claims. Doctored financial records, fabricated communications, even staged photographs meant to incriminate him. With Mikhail in federal custody, facing charges of attempted murder and conspiracy, The FBI had been forced to reevaluate their case against Alexander. Not that he was entirely innocent. I wasn't naive enough to believe that. But the crimes Mikhail had accused him of were fabrications, meant to destroy both Alexander and, collaterally, me and Lily. "Penny for your thoughts?" Alexander's voice came from behind me, accompanied by the subtle scent of his cologne. His wound had healed well, leaving only a small scar to join others I'd glimpsed when the medics had cut away his shirt. "Just thinking about how strange life is," I replied, turning to face him. "One moment can change everything." He crossed to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "Do you regret it? Being here?" "I regret the danger it brought to Lily," I answered honestly. "But no, I don't regret meeting you." His hand found mine, fingers intertwining with practiced ease. These small touches had become common between us in recent weeks, a gradual, cautious progression toward something neither of us had named. "The FBI has officially dropped their investigation," he said. "You and Lily are free to return to your apartment whenever you wish." The words should have brought relief. Instead, I felt an unexpected hollowness. "And what if we don't wish to? Not yet, anyway." Alexander's eyes darkened with an emotion I was finally ready to acknowledge. "Then you would make me very happy." "Lily loves it here," I said carefully. "She'd miss her tutor, the gardens. Mrs. Patel has practically adopted your chef." "And you?" he asked, the question heavy with meaning. "What would you miss, Eliza?" I met his gaze, allowing myself to be honest. With him. With myself. I'd miss the man who took a bullet for my daughter, who remembered her favorite stuffed animal, who sees me, really sees me, in a way no one ever has. Alexander's hand rose to cup my cheek, his thumb tracing the curve of my lips. "Stay," he whispered. "Not as someone under my protection, but as someone who chooses to be here. With me. It won't be simple," I warned. "Your world is complicated, dangerous." "Yes," he agreed, "but infinitely better with you in it." As his lips found mine in a kiss that felt like coming home, I realized that sometimes the greatest traps aren't the ones we fall into, but the ones we willingly choose. Eyes wide open, hearts fully engaged. And this trap? The one I'd whispered warnings about that night in the restaurant? It had become my salvation.